Welcome in to MMA weigh-in for UFC 227 Saturday night from Los Angeles. Big card, a lot of favorites on this card. We got one of the best minds in the industry, Matt Holt. Matt, welcome in, buddy. How you doing today?
Hey, Drew. How's it going?
Doing good. We got a good card here. We got a lot on the slate. I know you're a busy guy. Got some meetings coming up. Matt used to set pretty much all the lines for MMA at Cantor Gaming, now head of US Integrity now. So Matt, got a lot on your plate, but a big UFC card tomorrow night. So I want to get some bets in for the watchers. We'll start off right at the top, if that's all right with you, with TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. With looks like minus 120 favorite. That's it for TJ, and 2.5 as far as the total in this fight. You got any bet on this game or on this match so far, and also anything on the total?
Yeah, I actually bet Cody Garbrandt when this price was even money on Garbrandt and the comeback. It's a really interesting fight. These two don't like each other. They have a long-standing rivalry going back to when they were both members of Team Alpha Male out of California, training with Uriah Faber and those guys up there. Obviously, TJ Dillashaw left, went with Dwayne Bang Ludwig, started that gym in Denver, now kind of runs that gym. That he's kind of the main focal point out of, and this really developed into a rivalry. These two were, opposing coaches on the Ultimate Fighter show, and then Cody got hurt, and they had to postpone the first fight. They ended up fighting. I thought Cody rushed back in order to make that first fight happen. He was winning the fight pretty handily. In fact, almost knocked out TJ Dillashaw himself in the first round of the first fight, and in the second round got hit with a head kick. And ended up getting knocked out by TJ Dillashaw. Here we are with the rematch. Both guys, full training camps, no excuses this time. Both guys made weight. Both guys look great. The one thing that stood out to me is when I did a full breakdown of, punching power, kicking power, kickboxing, boxing, grappling, scrambles, takedown defense, offensive wrestling, everything, I actually came out with a slight advantage for TJ Dillashaw in this fight, thinking that he's the more rounded fight. But if you go back and watch the first fight, up until TJ landed that big head kick, you could make a very strong case that Cody Garbrandt was fairly dominating that fight. He hurt TJ. He was winning the fight. So I'm actually going to go with Cody here, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. I think Cody was probably the better fighter in the first fight. He's younger. He's 5 years younger than TJ Dillashaw, who's now 32 years old. Dillashaw lost to Dominic Cruz in a split decision. Cody Garbrandt absolutely dominated Dominic Cruz in their fight. I know it's a pick'em. I think it's a great fight. This fight's the one that's actually carrying the card, not only for the diehards, I think, but for the more novice and recreational MMA fans as well. And I'm going to go ahead and take Cody Garbrandt in this match for a unit play to go ahead and get his revenge and set up the trilogy.
All right, and you can actually get it plus 110 right now, Matt, at Bet Online. So we can give you the plus price there with Cody in the main event. And Matt, where are you right now in Las Vegas?
I'm right across the street from the airport. We have meetings at a bunch of casinos. One of my offices is right across the street from the airport. So, I'm back in Vegas. We were just on the Bay Area for a couple days, flew back in this morning, doing this show with you, and then off to more meetings.
Okay, a lot going on, and guys, please excuse the audio. It's a little muffly, but I guess you get the analysis and more importantly the bets. So Cody plus 110 right now at Bet Online. We can lock that in for Matt, and at the end we'll review the bets as well. Also shout out to the guys in the chat box. You, Kelly, Taylor, what's up, guys? Anric, thanks for watching. And if you're liking the content, liking the bets, please give us the thumbs up, the like symbol. It helps us out a lot. We also have a co-main event here, Matt. 2 championship fights, the flyweight title. Right now, looking at SBR odds, looks like Demaryius Johnson minus 470, excuse me, favorite versus Henry Cujo, who is we're getting plus 380, as high as 380 right now on Olympic gold medalist wrestler. Is there any value in this one?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Look, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson is the first and only flyweight champion in the history of the UFC. He won the title when they inaugurally held the tournament. He's never lost. He defended his title more than any other champion in the history of the UFC. He's widely regarded as not only the best pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC now, but maybe ever in the history of the UFC. The first time these two fighters fought, I did think they rushed Cejudo up. To your point, the 2008 Olympic gold medalist in wrestling in the Beijing Olympics, Cejudo sort of got rushed into a title fight, got stopped in the very first round with a killer knee from Demetrius Johnson, ended up getting knocked out. The problem here, and the reason that Henry Cejudo is getting a rematch after winning just 2 fights in a row over Sergio Pettis and an aging Wilson Heiss, is that there are no contenders left at 125 pounds. Mighty Mouse has completely cleaned out this division. Look, I thought there might have been a little bit of value in Cejudo when this line was minus 700 or minus 650 on Demetrius Johnson, but now I think this line has settled into right where it's supposed to be, and at the current price, I think this has to be a pass.
Okay, so maybe some value earlier, but at this price, just a pass. Any opinion on the total? You think it goes the full fight, 5 rounds?
I do think this one's much more likely to go the full 5 rounds, despite the fact that the first fight was a knockout. I think Cejudo's gotten a little better. Demetrius Johnson doesn't have devastating, knockout power. 27 wins, only 5 knockouts. A lot of his knockouts come by volume more than just a one punch. The knockout over Cejudo was actually a knee and not a punch that actually got Cejudo there. So I think this one's probably more likely to go the 5 rounds than not.
Okay, good analysis there, Matt. And guys, just so you know, we're going to hit on every fight on the main card and then get Matt's best bets if he has any for the undercard. So no need to ask any questions on the main card stuff, but feel free to ask any questions otherwise in the live chat right now. On to the next fight down the card. We got Cub Swanson versus Renato Moicano here. Minus 340 for Moicano, plus 290 for Cub Swanson. 2.5 is the total. Some juice towards this over at minus 280, likely according to the marketplace, going the full 3 rounds. Do you have any opinion in this fight, Matt?
What's interesting about this fight, and I'm not going to bet this fight personally, but they are begging you to take Cub Swanson in this fight. Cub Swanson is the public name. He's been in a lot of big fights. He fought Frankie Edgar twice. He fought Brian Ortega. He fought Max Holloway. But the interesting thing about all those fights is Cub Swanson lost them all. Cub Swanson loses every big fight when he steps up to the highest class here. The question really is Moicano Carneiro here really in the most elite? He's 12-1, but he has 0 knockouts in 12 wins, which is amazing for a UFC fighter of his elite level to have 0 knockouts in 12 wins. His only loss was to undefeated Brian Ortega, who is supposed to fight for the title. And interestingly enough, he was winning that fight against Brian Ortega before he got caught and submitted in the 3rd round. So you can make a strong case that Moicano here, Moicano Carneiro, has established himself as being able to handle and maybe beat the elite of the elite in the 145-pound featherweight weight class. I think what's interesting here is you're supposed to see this line drop. Cub Swanson's public. Cub Swanson has big-time power for 145 pounds. He's been in a lot of main events. He's fought a lot of names. Everyone knows who Cub is. Not very many people know who Renato Moicano Carneiro actually is, yet this line's not dropping at all and holding steady at minus 400. And I can guarantee you the books are taking plenty of $20 to $100 bets on the underdog Cub Swanson here, and yet they're not moving that line at all. That makes me think that the bigger bettors are actually going to lay this price, and I know a couple people who did actually lay this price. It's a little bit too rich for me because I still think while Cub Swanson's over the hill, he still has a little bit left in the tank. But what's interesting for Cub Swanson is this is the first fight on a new UFC contract, likely his last UFC contract. So for a guy who's never going to get another contract, he knows what he's going to make every fight the rest of his career, unless it's in a pay-per-view number spot. I don't know what the motivation is here for Cub. And at this point, it'd be hard for me to bet him. I almost feel like it's throwing money away, even though he feels like a live dog in this spot. So I'm going to go ahead and pass.
Okay, you're passing on this, and you bring up it's a little too rich for you. I guess just overall MMA betting for you, for maybe more of the newer beginner bettor in UFC, Is there a cutoff that you have, Matt? Like you wouldn't bet a favorite over minus 250 or anything like that, or it's just in this particular fight you're passing?
Just this particular fight, I don't believe that there's any line that's too big if you're a really astute bettor. As long as you see value in a line, hey, if a fighter is minus 800 and you feel like he should be minus 2,500, then there's some inherent value in there and you should probably lay the minus 800. In this case, I'm not sure. The sample size on Moicano is so small. You saw him look great against Brian Ortega, and we know that Cub Swanson's fading here, but the sample size is too small. I feel like the line might be slightly inflated. I feel like it probably should have been around 330, but there's not enough value and not enough meat on the bone for me personally to go ahead and pluck my money down on Cub Swanson.
All right, Matt. Two more fights here on the main card, and the second most, I guess, evenly priced fight on the card is Viana Mota versus JJ Aldrich, and Mota minus 135 favorite, so you can get Aldrich at plus 120. Also, 2.5 is the total, some juice towards the over. Any opinion on this fight?
So I'll tell you, I was really doing a lot of analysis on this fight, and I think it's easy for a sharp bettor, if you just look at the records and who each fighter fought, to land on JJ Aldrich in this fight. She's 2-1 in the UFC. Her only loss is to Juliana Lima at a time when Juliana Lima was still really good. She's won 2 fights since then. She beat Danielle Taylor, who's actually fighting on this card. So you look at them on paper and you go, wow, JJ Aldrich has a great resume. She fought Jamie Moyle, and on the other side, Viana Mota doesn't really have a resume that has any fighters you've ever heard of on it. But normally when you see 2 fighters with this little bit of prestige on it, the UFC is trying to showcase one of them. There's a reason that these 2 women are fighting in this spot on the pay-per-view main card. And what I've heard from people that have seen Viana Mota in the gym is that she is an absolute killer. 10-1, all 10 wins by finish. 4 knockouts, 6 submissions. Her UFC debut is amazing. I was going to pass on this fight when it was minus 210, minus 200 on Mota, but now that this line's dropped quite a bit, I know Aldrich is the sexy play. A lot of sharps have bet Aldrich. I understand why they did. I completely understand how you get there on paper with her resume, who she's beat, the 2-fight winning streak. I'm going to go ahead and lay the $1.65 on Viana Mota here, because what I've heard from fighters and trainers I know is that she has looked unbelievable in the gym, engaging by her UFC debut where she looked amazing. I think the UFC in this fight is trying to showcase what they believe is an up-and-coming superstar level talent, and I'm going to go ahead and lay the reduced price on the chalk here.
Yeah, and Matt, actually, using SBR odds right now, I mean, Bovada has it as high as minus 160. There's some opinion in the marketplace because Bet Online in this fight is as low as minus 131 right now.
Like I said, I know some sharp players personally who are really good at MMA who bet the underdog here, especially when Mota was minus 210, minus 200, minus 190. There was a ton of sharp action on JJ Aldrich, and I completely understand how they got there. If you just break this fight down on paper, it is really easy to land on JJ Aldrich, and maybe that's the right side. But I think a lot of those same people who bet JJ Aldrich have never seen Viana Mota fight, or maybe never seen her besides her one UFC fight before. And what I've heard about her is unbelievable athleticism, unbelievable submissions on the ground, amazing in scrambles, and that her striking game is a lot more technically sound than you see from a lot of these athletic Brazilians coming up. I'm actually laying the chalk in this one.
All right, Matt, I like that. So going against the market move here, we can give you as low as minus 131 right now on Mota at Bet Online. Last fight on the main card, Thiago Santos versus Kevin Holland. 2 names here a lot of people will recognize. Minus 350 favorite for Santos, so you can catch plus 300 on the underdog Holland. 1.5 the total. Juiced a little bit towards the over. Have you made a bet on this fight yet, Matt?
Yeah, I actually played the under in this fight. I wanted to play Kevin Holland. I was going to take a shot on the underdog, but at the end of the day, I said, look, this is a typical Thiago Santos fight. Somebody's getting knocked out. And the only reason I almost played Kevin Holland is the fact that he's never been knocked out. But when I looked at his resume and his level of competition, I said, there's a reason Kevin Holland's never been knocked out. He never fought anybody who could punch before. Thiago Santos is one of the most devastating strikers, maybe in the history of the UFC. 17 wins, 12 of them by knockout. Knocked out Jack Hermanson, knocked out Jack Marshman, knocked out Gerard Mearshart, knocked out Anthony Lionheart Smith, who actually just got a win over Shogun Rua and a headliner of a UFC card a few weeks ago. So the knockout wins, knocked out Elias Theodoro. I mean, Thiago Santos has an amazing amount of knockout wins over guys either in the top 15 or outside of the top 15. Kevin Holland's only UFC fight, if you call it a UFC fight, was a win on Dana White Contender Series. I like his athleticism. I think he can bang too. And Thiago Santos, for all his knockout power, has been very susceptible to getting stopped himself. He got knocked out in the first round of his last fight by David Branch. He got knocked out stopped by Gerard Mousasi, knocked out by Uriah Hall. It's hard for me to see this one getting out of the second round, so I played it under at even money.
All right, I like it. And we got Blake in the chat box saying he likes the under as well. So good stuff here, Matt. Matt, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with the audio. I think it will come back, though. Wanted to get your opinion before we get to the undercard real quick. The NBA and MGM signed a deal. I know you know a lot about the industry, and we don't get you on very often, so just wanted to throw this out there real quick. Is there any opinions you have with professional leagues signing with the casino and what this means for the industry going forward?
Yeah, I think it's a great deal and a really big bright spot for people in the industry. I know I've heard of a lot of opinions, positive and negative, a lot of speculation about this deal. I think part of it on the MGM side is that they also did a deal with GVC, / Ladbrokes to be, sports betting partners there, so that while they ingest this real-time data from the arenas, they're able to actually turn it into products for the in-game wagering purposes and redistribute it. And I think it's great for MGM that they're going to start using NBA branded highlights and logos, and that the two are really going to be joined forces. This is much more than a marketing play. MGM is pulling real-time data from the arenas. They're going to use it to build products. That part of it's great for the industry as well here in the United States. But take the other aspect of it with the highlights and logos, and for the first time, we actually have a true marketing deal between a casino and a league, and that's a bright spot for the industry too, as we continue to pave our way down essentially the yellow brick road of sports betting, as you will.
Yeah, man, for sure. Just wanted to get your opinion there. And Matt, did you want to throw out any other bets that you've placed and want to go on record with the undercard? And if so, have at it.
Sure. Yeah, I have two undercard fights that I actually played. First one is Ricky Simon, plus 105 against Montel Jackson. Ricky Simon's only 25 years old. This kid's really starting to come into his own now. He actually got a fight on the Dana White Contender Series last year, won his fight on that show, but didn't get a contract because some other fighters on that particular episode had looked better in victory. So he didn't get a contract, went back out on the regional scene, won a couple of more fights, finally got a contract to fight in the UFC, came out, won his UFC debut as an underdog in overwhelming fashion. This guy's been in there with some tough guys. He beat Chico Camas, who was in there in a tough go-the-distance fight with Henry Cejudo, who's fighting for the title tonight. Ricky Simon's been in there and beaten some really tough, legitimate guys at 125 pounds. Montel Jackson's a great athlete. He's undefeated as an amateur. He's undefeated as a pro. But that undefeated record tallies 6 total fights, amateur and pro here. So I think the experience for Ricky Simon, and we see it all the time in MMA, where these guys that come into MMA at 19 and 20 years old, by the time they're 23, 24, and they have 10, 11, 12 fights under their belt, they can make a big leap forward, and I think that's what we're seeing here with Ricky Simon. And since the line flipped and Montel Jackson's now the favorite, I went ahead and took the plus price of Ricky Simon at plus 105.
Yeah, plus 105 right now on Ricky Simon. Okay, and you said you had one more on the undercard, Matt?
I bet was Shaman Moraes, minus 120 versus Matt Sales. These are two bangers here, two guys that don't like to go to the ground, don't have any submission wins really between them. Shaman Moraes is a guy who fought Marlon Moraes, who's a top 4 ranked 135-pounder right now in the UFC. He fought him for the WSOF title prior. He's fought some really stiff competition here. He's huge for 135 pounds. He lost his UFC debut because he got out grappled and ended up getting submitted, but this is going to be a rock'em sock'em affair with two guys at 135 pounds who can really throw down. Moraes has fought the better competition. Moraes is the bigger guy, and Moraes might be the better striker here at a really generous minus 120 price. I went ahead and laid it.
Okay, and that was with Shaman Moraes. We were losing your audio a little bit.
Yeah, Shaman Moraes, minus 120.
Shaman Moraes, minus 120. And then we got a question here from Blake in the chat box. Anything on the Brett Johns fight?
Man, I don't know what to make of that fight. To me, these are two guys, and I hate to call, Pedro Munoz a gatekeeper, but first of all, I'm always weirded out by guys who have the word young in their nickname but are over 30 years old. I'm not sure how young you are anymore. Pedro Munoz, nicknamed the Young Punisher, but now he's almost 32 years old. Maybe it should be the middle-aged Punisher. Both of these guys, to me, are guys that beat guys that they're supposed to beat. Pedro Munoz has a great win over Rob Font, who's a top 15 ranked bantamweight. But besides that, he lost every time he stepped up in class. Lost to Jimmy Rivera, lost to Rafael Asuncao. He loses the fights against the bigger guys. On the other side, Brett Johns was an undefeated European prospect for a long time, finally made the big jump up in class last time against Aljamain Sterling, who was just too athletic, too big, too long, and was able to outwork Brett Johns. I think both of these guys are grinders a little bit, but I think when you start going down the breakdown edge, Munoz checks an awful lot of boxes in this fight. I did see that the price had dropped quite a bit from like minus 330 down to minus 250. So now I did think it was a little rich, maybe in the minus 330 range, but now that it's down to minus 250, minus 260, that's probably right where this number is supposed to be. So it's a pass for me.
Okay, pass on that one. Yeah, guys, info in the chat box as well. We appreciate everybody chiming in. Matt's got a lot going on as far as meetings today with his new company. But Matt, do you mind just going down the list and recapping what your bets are on the UFC card tomorrow night?
Sure. I bet Cody Garbrandt for a full unit in that fight. I have a half unit on Cejudo, Demetrius Johnson to go over 1.5, to go the full, over 4.5 rounds in that fight. I actually laid the full unit on Polyana Viana Moda at minus 160. I bet Ricky Simon at plus 105 versus Montel Jackson. Shaman Moraes at minus 120 versus Matt Sales. And I'll tell you this, with a card with a lot of big favorites, if you say, hey, all these big favorites that are minus 260 or bigger, what do you think the biggest lock of the card is? For me, it's the very first fight of the card, Marlon Vera. This is a guy who beat Brad Pickett. He beat Brian Kelleher. His losses are to Douglas Silva de Andrade and John Lineker, and he's only 25 years old. Marlon Vera is put in a showcase fight here to get back on track against a completely overmatched opponent. The price has gone up from minus 100 to minus 650, but if you're asking, hey, I'm looking for a parlay builder, or I'm looking for what I think's the biggest lock of all the big favorites, for me, it's Marlon Vera.
All right, great stuff, Matt. Know you got a lot going on. Best of luck for the rest of the day. Have a great weekend. Thanks for watching, everybody, and best of luck with your bets this weekend. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks, guys.